And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's live updates brought to you by Australian Indian Radio and live streamed by Gentex Multimedia Streaming Services. Well, Brisbane is 15 degrees and sunny today, and it's a wonderful day. Good to have your company. Today we'll be talking about a function that happened this morning, which I had the opportunity of being at, which was the Southside Business Budget Breakfast with the Treasurer. We'll bring to you all the updates a little bit later on. But right now, taking a look at these lockdowns, and are we getting any closer to, coming out of this lockdown? It doesn't seem that way. So, this report here titled A Tale of Two Cities.
We've gone hard and early, and I think we have avoided, in fact I know we have avoided, something altogether worse. That's weeks, if not months, of being closed.
I can't remember a time when our state has been challenged to such an extent. Not a single one of these decisions was taken lightly.
The country's two biggest cities are back in lockdown, with outbreaks that continue to grow.
This particular variant is really challenging us, and so it is a real eye-opener about how long we can possibly aim to keep in this holding pattern, that keep at COVID zero.
With no doubt there's elements of frustration. We could have been so much further along the road to vaccine coverage.
I got home from work on Monday and I was getting ready to go to bed, and I got a notice from Western Health Department and basically telling us that we can't leave the building.
Melbourne's lockdown was sparked by the spread of the virus at this apartment block in the city's inner west. Residents, including Eleni Tekesta, are now 1 week into their strict 14-day quarantine.
So we've been advised not to leave our rooms at all, like our apartments. We can't open the doors for any other reason apart from, getting parcels delivered to us or putting out the rubbish outside for them to collect.
Most of Melbourne's cases are linked to a crew of removalists from Sydney. The removalists infected the apartment block residents more than 10 days ago. One of those residents, a man in his 60s, then went to a pub in the city before attending an AFL match at the MCG. He unwittingly spread the virus at both venues. From those two sites, COVID-19 has stretched across the state, from Phillip Island to Mildura. As of today, there are 81 active cases, and the number of exposure sites has swelled to nearly 300.
Once we found out they weren't even wearing masks, I was kind of questioning every little symptom I had.
Freight has to keep going, and we've managed to do that safely through most of the way. But you only need some people to be operating in less than ideal ways.
We've been told to shut immediately, do a deep clean, and that myself has to quarantine for 14 days.
Josh Pigden had a close call with the virus after he trained with the man who later tested positive. It's put his new business on ice.
Definitely came into contact with the person, coached him twice and then trained with him another time, but I don't think, hopefully we haven't got it. We only opened up in January. We've already been through the February lockdown, then the May or April one that was week, and then another week and then another week.
For Melburnians, this is a painfully familiar scene. Empty streets, deserted stores, and the feeling of Groundhog Day for the 5th time around. The lockdown is now set to be extended beyond the 5 days originally planned. And over the weekend, Victorians were warned to be ready for what could unfold this week.
We just need to brace ourselves for any possibility.
Melbourne-based epidemiologist Professor Catherine Bennett is optimistic the outbreak will be brought under control soon.
Most people in lockdown have very few contacts, so that gets much easier to follow up. That gives me hope that we could get on top of this by the end of the week.
But the situation in Sydney is looking less promising.
The data we saw yesterday on the exposure sites show that every person in Greater Sydney is at risk.
Sydney's outbreak started a month ago with an airport limo driver. It soon moved to retail and hospitality venues in the eastern suburbs. But COVID is now spreading among workplaces and families in the city's southwest. Today, the state recorded 98 new cases. 20 of those were infectious while in the community. Another 17 were in isolation for part of their infectious period. Crucially, it's those numbers that have grown during the past month. And experts say those numbers will be key to measuring the success of the lockdown.
The key number to focus on will be the number that are infectious within the community. At the moment, that's been around about the sort of 30 to 40 mark, depending on how that's defined. We really need to get that declining through this week. Hopefully, we can get it down to 10 or 15 by the end of the week.
Fairfield in Sydney's southwest is one of the 3 local government areas that's become the epicentre of COVID infections in New South Wales, where stricter lockdown conditions have been imposed. Residents are banned from leaving the area for work except for jobs deemed essential, and they must be tested every 72 hours.
For somebody like myself who works 6 days, and while we are essential workers, it's very hard for me. So working 6 days, I've got to find something that's open 24 hours or open late.
James El-Khoury is a dentist who lives and practices in Fairfield, but also travels to the Central Coast to work.
And then I'm gonna go to your nose. 1 here, second all the way up. Done.
It's not the most comfortable thing.
People are still very confused. People are still very stressed. People are still very angry. I am still getting messages from constituents asking, am I allowed to go to work tomorrow?
On Saturday, the New South Wales government banned all but health and emergency workers from leaving 3 local government areas in Sydney's southwest for work. A few hours later, it amended the rules to add several dozen other exemptions, including workers employed in education, retail, transport and manufacturing. Fairfield councillor Di Lay says the changes have been confusing for residents.
The majority of our people are non-English speaking backgrounds, and trying to grapple all this information, it's just daunting and very overwhelming. I think 69% of our population are essential workers. It's not a work where you work from the laptop, can Zoom in, can call in. We are the engine of Australian society. We are actually the ones that contribute to a lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the businesses that are out there.
The decision over the weekend to halt construction across Sydney for 2 weeks prompted outcry.
The last 24 hours have been, really challenging. The construction industry it's the backbone of our economy, and to shut it off overnight, it's very hard to swallow.
Evan Yalda's construction company Qua is based in Fairfield.
There's a lot of people in the industry that are actually self-employed. Painters, tilers, a lot of other trades. I mean, for them, it's very simple. No work equals no pay. How are they going to make ends meet? 2 weeks is a long time.
The picture in New South Wales, particularly in Sydney, looks like we'll be under stay-at-home sort of orders for some weeks to come. We don't know whether that'll be 2, 3, several weeks to come.
So several weeks to come, as has been the report there. But right now, let's go to Victoria, where we have just heard that the lockdown has now been extended.
As thousands queued for testing across the state, today's announcement seemed inevitable.
We will not be, I'm sorry to say, ready to lift these restrictions at midnight tomorrow night.
300 exposure sites stretch from Phillip Island to the Mallee, meaning no area of the state can exit lockdown as hoped.
It would be perhaps a few days of sunshine, and then we'd be very high chance we'd be back in lockdown again. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Today's new cases include a household contact of the Mildura man who caught the virus at the MCG, a social contact of the Phillip Island case, a further case linked to Bacchus Marsh Grammar. The rest of the cases were in Melbourne. The most concerning was a person who caught the virus at Amy Park, and a case from the Euro event at the Crafty Squire last week.
We didn't necessarily expect there to be transmission there, so the fact that it's occurred some 30 hours after being exposed is absolutely a feature of the Delta variant.
The Chief Health Officer believes outdoor transmission has occurred at sporting matches, including while people were queuing here.
Today's Amy Park case was seated in an area of the ground that was not anywhere near the initial case in question.
For the Butcher Club, it's a case of history repeating. Its Chadstone store was the site of a cluster last year. Now its Dockland shop is closed for cleaning after being declared a Tier 1 site.
This time it's out of our control. Somebody who's bought it into our organisation. Fortunately, all of our staff at this stage have come back with negative results.
The Premier will also have more to say about further support for businesses struggling through lockdown number 5 tomorrow. Some traders who are still trying to find out why they didn't qualify for payments were told it would be a 17-hour wait on the business support hotline today.
It's absolutely appalling the way these small businesses are being treated, being asked to wait 17 hours for a basic answer to a basic question.
But lockdowns aren't stopping some.
We need you to come together and get vaccinated as soon as you're eligible, to give us the performance of a lifetime.
Australian artists have created a campaign encouraging people to get vaccinated.
We can't wait to give you a standing ovation.
Bridget Rollerson, ABC News, Melbourne.
And of course, that is the echo of the people that, please do go out there and get vaccinated. Well, right now, looking at that case of the remove list in question, and now their mother becomes a victim. So let's take a look at that report.
Isolated in their cars, waiting for permission to move, two brothers sit outside the Green Valley house. Surrounded by police, they waited outside the home where their mother passed away. Officials confirmed the grim news late this afternoon. The woman in her 50s died after contracting COVID-19. Her two sons and their colleague were charged for breaching a health order for driving to the Central West in their line of work as removalists. That's despite receiving a call from health officials to return mid-trip after one tested positive.
Once you get a phone call from health telling you that you have tested positive to the virus, you have to return immediately to your place of residence and quarantine. They failed to do that.
Police say the trio understood the orders to return but continued to complete the delivery.
My understanding is that they can speak some English, but they did understand the seriousness of the positive test. That's something that obviously will be before the court and will be thrashed out in the legal argument.
5 people have died from COVID in Sydney in the last 10 days. Authorities fear the spread in the southwestern suburbs has been so fast that it's proving hard for contact tracers to beat.
It is becoming very hard, and what a sad case in that instance. And the mother passed away, in her 50s. So it is a really, really sad case. But it just drives home the importance of following these, rules and regulations and the directions that have been put down. Of course, you are in a line of duty. You have got a job to do. You have, your commitments. But of course, if you call up your customers and clients and explain to them all the things, I'm pretty sure they will understand. Well, right now, let's go to South Australia, where it enters the 4 restrictions.
So this is not a lockdown, but it is clearly significant restrictions on public activities within our community. The Premier has outlined most of those sufficiently, I think, and you have copies that you can take away the specific details of. One thing that needs elaborating, I think, is the ability to continue. We're restricting non-essential retail, which means the sorts of things that will continue to be open are retail and wholesale of activities for food and other essential items, and including newspapers and other personal care type retail activities. We're talking about household consumer products that are essential to maintain the safety and cleanliness and well-being of a business or premise, home or business. Pharmaceuticals and chemicals retailers are able to operate. Opticians and optometrists, businesses that are selling medical and orthopaedic goods, fuel stations and heating fuel providers, retailers involved in the repair of motor vehicles and other forms of transport, bicycles. We're talking about the retail sale of essential items for the care and well-being of animals, laundries and dry cleaners, laundromats.
So South Australia, while not in a complete lockdown, is operating under those restrictions and the closing of the non-essential businesses, but leaving the essential businesses as defined there, open to public, because there are things that people do need on your daily basis on the basis of survival. Well, right now the other problem that we have is what about our indigenous community, and what about the settlements and those areas? Are we reaching out or not?
1, 2, 3.
Rolling up their sleeves to do their bit for the community.
Bit of protection for me and my family.
You weigh up the side effects to dying. What's the best? You've got to be here for your kids and your grandkids.
In southwest Sydney, this Aboriginal medical service is taking no chances. 300 Pfizer vaccines were delivered here today, ramping up efforts to get its large Indigenous clientele vaccinated.
When we got those, we couldn't believe it was coming, Without 10 minutes, 80 people booked.
The federal government is aiming to have all Aboriginal community-controlled health services administering Pfizer by mid-August. In Victoria, early availability of Pfizer has meant vaccination among Aboriginal Victorians is higher than the non-Indigenous community.
That's the power of community control. Since we've had the availability of Pfizer in June, our vaccination rates have gone more up and up.
Nationally, 21% of Indigenous Australians have now received at least one dose of a vaccine, but only 8% have been fully vaccinated, compared to 13% of the general population. As larger urban centres like this one begin to receive their long-awaited Pfizer vaccines, we don't have a clear picture of the barriers and supply for regional and remote clinics across the country.
If we don't have the data, then we effectively don't exist in the eyes of government.
Back in southwest Sydney, healthcare workers know there's no time to waste to protect their community.
We are sick people, and we want to close the gap. We want to live longer like non-Aboriginal people. And the important thing is that we're the longest living culture in this world, so we've got something to offer.
An urgent message for a vulnerable community.
Thank you very much.
And it is a very urgent message for the community, and it's good to see that the community leaders are reaching out to the people and asking everyone to come forward and get vaccinated. So we Australians are taking this quite seriously. Well, when we look at our numbers on the context, our numbers in general may be low, but I mean, if you look at the proportion of the population based upon that, our numbers are high. So, when someone like Kate Hopkins from London, when they joke about the numbers here in Australia, I don't think it's a joke. But it is a joke that she was let into the country. Here's that report.
What the heck Australia's doing, locking down when you've had like a handful of people die, I have no idea what. Like, for my money, it is nothing worse than the flu. It's I will be coming there one day. That's a direct threat.
The federal government is facing questions over how a far-right provocateur gained entry to Australia at a time when overseas arrivals are at an all-time low.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Katie Hopkins is a British commentator known primarily for her extreme views on Islam and refugees.
And I have been banned from South Africa for spreading racial hatred.
In 2017, she called for a final solution after a bombing in Manchester by an Islamic extremist and has compared migrants to cockroaches. In June 2020, Twitter permanently banned her for breaching the company's hateful conduct policy.
She's made quite inflammatory comments about various segments of society. She has strong views, generally on the right of political opinion, perhaps the far right, some might say.
Good morning, if you're with me here in Sydney, Australia. Now, before you ask how have I managed to get here, you will know that I have always called lockdown the greatest hoax in human history.
As millions of Australians have been plunged back into lockdown, Hopkins scorned the government's response in a series of updates from quarantine in Sydney, ahead of an expected appearance she was due to make on a Channel 7 reality show, Big Brother.
She threatened on her Instagram page that next time someone knocked on the door, She would open the door almost immediately, or as quickly as she could. She would do so in the nude, wearing no masks or anything. And in some way, this was supposed to demonstrate how much of a hoax COVID is.
But her online antics have been poorly received.
So on a flat out laws, then you pack your bongo and get out of the country.
Yesterday, Channel 7 announced it had cancelled her contract. Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews later sought a review of her visa conditions, and today it was cancelled.
The ABF, the Australian Border Force, acted very quickly to make sure that the visa on which she entered was cancelled. We will be getting her out of the country as soon as we can possibly arrange that.
I think the way the character provisions have been applied in this case just seems quite extraordinary.
For a foreign national to enter Australia right now, a Department of Home Affairs official must approve an entry visa.
The character decision, the visa decision, is 100% rests with the Commonwealth Government and in particular Minister Andrews' department.
Permission must also be sought from the Australian Border Force Commissioner or his officers for an exemption of the COVID-19 travel ban. The Commissioner's guidelines state that people in the entertainment industry may enter where there's benefit to Australia and where the state government supported it.
Apparently, Australian Border Force came to the conclusion that Ms Hopkins does have these critical skills that were needed for the Australian economy and in particular for Big Brother. How they came to that conclusion, I don't know. I would have thought we had more than enough people with the skills Ms Hopkins provides.
I mean, actually, it happens reasonably regularly that state governments approach the federal government on the basis that there is an economic benefit to some people coming in over the quarantine caps.
So some benefit to the people coming in over that cap, and I think that was a pretty poor call. She should not have been allowed into the country. When we look at, there are so many applications from many people who are separated from their families and others, and they cannot get a permit to come back, but she got a permit to come back, and she ridiculed Australians as a whole, the nation as a whole, the people as a whole. So people like that should not be allowed in. Well, that's my opinion. Well, right now let's take a very quick commercial break before we go to the news from this morning, which we have now put together, the Southside Business Breakfast with the Queensland Treasurer, and we'll see who was there, what happened.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. Don't forget that tomorrow we have the real estate update with Usha Chandra. Well, right now we're going to talk about India Day Fair. And of course, supporting India Day Fair is our Gold Coast chapter. And he is the president, Pradeep Gaurasia.
GoPro Queensland is organizing the India Fair Day. We at GoPro Gold Coast is supporting it. And we encourage all the Indians in Gold Coast to join them. All the best.
And thank you very much, Pradeep Gaurasia, the president of GoPro Gold Coast. Well, from presidents to community leaders to politicians to our budding young stars, everyone's welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Ishana Chandra and I would like to invite you to GoPro Queensland's India Day Fair at South Bank Piazza on the 15th of August. A free, fun-filled family event celebrating India's independence, a new venue and bigger, bolder programming. See you all there!
Definitely, yes, we will see you all there on the day, and it is wonderful to see that, that everyone's getting involved with the India Day Fair. Well, right now we're going to talk about what we said before. This will be our lead out story for today. Is the Southside Business Breakfast with the Treasurer. Small business, I must say. This morning, and the breakfast took place at the Newham Hotel, which is at 516 Newham Road, Upper Mount Gravatt. Honourable Cameron Dick, MP, Treasurer and Minister for Investment, addressed the gathering of all the small business and community leaders, and he outlined what the budget has been able to do, and one of the top priorities in the budget was the safeguarding and the health. So the health sector was there. So it was, even though the debt levels might still be there, government might have still borrowed money, but they still wanted to make sure that everyone was employed and that the economy of the state was stable. I think that was the primary message there. So the morning was said by Honourable Di Palmer, the MP and member for Bulimba. She was there as well. As we know that she is a very great community advocate, and she does a lot of work out in the community as well as child safety officer as well. So Honourable Di Palmer, MP member for Bulimba, Minister for Employment, Small Business, Training and Skills Development. So, it is quite an important portfolio that she has. And of course, as we know, our Treasurer outlined quite a lot of things, and he did mention about the economy, how it's going to rebound, and also thanked Queensland's small businesses for taking up some of the incentives that they had put in place to keep everyone in place. And of course, as we know that the event was also organized by Joe Kelly MP. And Joe Kelly, as we know, is a very community-minded person as well, very popular within our community, and he's the member for Greenslopes, and he is the Deputy Speaker of the House as well. So he was there as well. Of course, he always does a wonderful job as well. And of course, Connie McMillan, because she again is a community champion and community advocate, member for Mansfield, as one of the co-hosts for the function, and of course she did quite well as well. And of course it was supported by Joan Pearce, the MP for Lytton. So, once again, a very great turnout there. As you can see, the hall completely full. And it was good to see quite a large number of representatives there from our community. So it was good to see that that support that all of these people got from our community. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you this morning. Wonderful to have your company. As I mentioned before, that the restrictions are still in place, and of course masks are mandatory. So if you're going out and about, please do take care, observe those rules and regulations, and of all remain safe. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.